least that was nice with yours.
Hey, it worked. Let me.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, let me do it. I was very nice with yours.
I don't know about that. It means I got to pay child support for somebody, right? From someone else's dad.
Well, well, yes, that's the more PG version of what that could mean.
Yeah, that's the expensive version. That's the one that I don't want to face.
Mine sounds a little bit more voyeuristic, actually, if you just take it literally.
That's true. It does.
So we can do that.
Welcome to a live stream of two dads
Yay.
talking. We are at 100 followers on Facebook.
A real one.
The real one. We're there on the Facebook account, on the Two Dads Talking account instead of one of ours. That's where we're at today.
It's happening. It's happening.
For those listening instead of watching, it's kind of a shame you can't see Doug resting his feet on these elderly gentlemen's. His head on these elderly gentlemen's feet. He chose an interesting virtual background.
Well, I was thinking about trying to use this on our website at some point because, it's socks and sandals. That's who we are. It's like our spirit animal. So
I am not a socks and sandals guy. I'm just not.
I have socks on in my house slippers right now.
Of course you do.
And it is lush and glorious.
Oh, goodness.
All right. So tonight we want to talk about daddy issues. That's why Tom is your daddy and I'm avid daddy, which again, I'm not actually sure what avid daddy really means, but we're going to go with it. We're going to talk about Hunter Biden getting the extremely oddly specific pardon from Joe Biden. What was this, was this just yesterday?
I think it was yesterday.
I was going to say this was a Monday thing, right?
I think it was.
I don't know why they didn't try to do it in the day before, the inauguration and or on a Saturday or something like that.
I wonder if they're worried about Joe, getting across that finish line. I wonder if he's just kind of done and he's like, look, these are the things I want to get done before I'm out. Just do it. What do I care? Just friggin' do it.
I mean, well, we have to, I'll try to keep this on topic and more dad oriented instead of politically, but what finish line does he have to cross?
The transition.
There's so many clips of just him clearly not knowing exactly where to go or what to do. I'm sure they did some sort of rehearsal / he was, in this level of politics for 40 plus years. So he should kind of have half an idea of where he's going and what he's doing. So I'm not sure what finish line he has to get unless they're talking death. I don't know. I don't get it.
But maybe that's it, because if there's one thing we know about Trump, we know that he's not exactly the high road kind of guy. And if Biden grants this pardon, a month from now, and there are more cases of him falling apart mentally, publicly, he doesn't appear to be of sound mind. Could Trump then attack the pardon? I don't know how that works, but could Trump then say, look, he gave this pardon, but he wasn't sound mind and body at the time. He wasn't fit to give this pardon. He wasn't rational. And could Trump then, I don't know, can you unpardon if the first one was given, in an unstable state of mind? I don't know, but maybe that's something that they're worried about. And they want to get it done before Trump's got ammunition to go after him, because that's something Trump would do.
I mean, I guess that's exactly my point. How I feel like, especially as someone who's had this kind of thing in my family in the past, I feel like there's plenty of ammo for that right now. And I guess you could argue it could get worse down the road, but yeah, I don't know. This is obviously the perfect kind of topic for two non-attorneys to discuss.
Right.
But I don't know. I
feel like so not qualified to talk about this.
If it has his signature on it, yeah. My knee-jerk reaction is no, unless there was at least some sort of, because what is it, the 25th Amendment or something like that you can invoke to claim someone's not of sound mind and remove them from power, and that was, people were talking about that with him at one point.
Yeah.
I think you could, if someone had at least started some sort of hearing or proceeding before he does that pardon, maybe you could then turn around and argue retroactively, hey, turns out this pardon was garbage. Right. Because we proved and we motioned to prove this first, and we did. But I feel like once it's out, you can't prove before your official filing or documentation that he wasn't of sound mind before, technically, right? Like, you have to stick to something. It's an interesting theory. I never really thought of it that way. I just thought they should have been more subtle about this. It still would have come out in various channels, but it could have been not so, in my mind, so obvious.
Yeah, and I don't know.
So,
maybe there's another reason for it. I really don't know, but it just struck me as kind of odd. And he said over and over again this was not something he was going to do, which is another thing that Democrats are mad at him even. I don't know. It's weird timing. It's a weird situation, and I couldn't help but think as I read about it a little bit, like, if this was me, would I do it any differently? Would I have waited this long? I mean, a part of me says, I would have said when it happened, I might have pardoned my kid then just to get him out of jail for life, and said, screw it. Who cares if I get reelected? I'm not going to let my kid sit in a prison for his life. So as a dad, I'm kind of on board with this, even though I don't think it's the right thing to do. I get it. And I don't know that I would do anything differently.
Yeah. Well, here. So I was just thinking, this is kind of, I assume most of our watchers / listeners know what we're talking about. Maybe we should just take like half a step back. So what actually happened was President Joe Biden issued a pardon we think it was just yesterday, for his son Hunter. And he basically granted him like a blanket pardon that basically said, hey, anything illegal federally that Hunter Biden has done from 2014 onward is now pardoned, forgiven. And it includes this, there was a gun case against him where he had,
I think I lost Doug. I think we're having internet connections. That's not good.
Did you lose me for a second there? Everything refreshed for a second.
Yep.
Huh?
You're back. Yep, you're back.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So there was this thing that he was actually being potentially, sentenced for, was an illegally purchased gun that got disposed of in a trash can, like on school grounds. It didn't have the proper form filing with it for possession or whatever. So that's pardoned. But it was basically the last 11 years, 2014 onward. Anything that Hunter Biden did or may have done is now pardoned. And so that's what we're talking about. And people are trying to cite it specifically to, because Hunter was on the board of Burisma, which is an energy company based out of Ukraine. And he was appointed to that board in 2014, which is exactly when this starts, in between the war and the accusations of firing, attorney generals over there and all the fraud in and out that they've been finding from other stuff. People are saying that this is specifically so far the opposition take is that Joe Biden is actually covering himself because he was a part of this scam over there back when he was VP. So really pardoning Hunter is pardoning himself too, in a way, keeping it from coming back to him. Now you're all caught up if you weren't sure of exactly the details of what we're talking about here. So Tom is saying, sure, as a dad, why wouldn't you? Basically, is that what you're saying in so many words?
That's basically what I'm saying. Like the basic, the rational part of me says, no, this is wrong. He was convicted and you shouldn't use your powers this way. And I don't think what a pardon is intended for. And I think you're wrong for doing this. But the dad part of me says I would probably do the same thing for my kid, And that's where I'm kind of torn, because I was saying to Doug before we started recording, I've always been much like my mom and my dad. Hey, if you screw up and the police come knocking, I'm going to hand you over and you're going to learn a lesson.
Oh, and you're looking for him? Yeah, he's right here. He's right there. Okay, go get him.
Here, let me grab his bag for you, right?
Yeah, right.
And I've always thought I was of a similar mindset. I've been waiting
for this day, his jail bag. Let me get it.
Well, they get to claim me on their taxes and don't have to pay for any of the food or the shelter, I guess. I'm not running up the electric bill anymore. But I've always thought.
Hey, Tom. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. You're muted. And I think it is your problem this time because you're showing a... Did your thing switch over again? Nope. Look, there you go. Nope. Oh wait, now I can hear you, but you're like a little church mouse somewhere in my distant headphones. This happened last time, or 2 times ago.
The hell is going on?
Oh, there you are. Oh, you came back for a second. Nope, now you're muted again.
How about now?
Yeah, good. Okay,
No,
so you
that
were
makes
saying,
sense.
yeah, electric bill.
This makes
Was
no sense.
It did this to you like 2 recordings ago, 2 weeks ago or something, I think. This exact thing. So I got to listen to the edit being like, "You're muted, dude."
All right, so now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I've been sitting here biting back all kinds of profanities just in case you could still hear me. I don't know what just happened. My input and output just got swapped.
Yeah.
Turns
Well,
out that my microphone can't be a speaker. That's interesting.
Well,
Who
it happened
knew,
to you
right?
mid-sentence, and I said, "This your stuff did this to you like 2 weeks ago randomly." So. Good.
What was I saying before I cut myself off with this?
You talked about, I made a joke about a jail bag, and then you talked about how at least your kid would go into the prison system and they wouldn't be, an electric bill or whatever like that for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm twisted because again, do I think this is right? No, this is not right. You should not. This is not what a presidential pardon was meant for. But would I do any differently if my kid's ass was on the line?
Yeah,
I probably would do the same thing. I just probably would.
Yeah,
Oh, and we got Will watching. Hey, Will.
I already established myself as the cooler one. No take backsies.
That's all right. I put him on the live stream, so I think I'm cooler.
Right. So here's my take on this. Let's qualify this, that if I were put in this exact situation, like President Doug, which never fucking happened. I don't want it to happen. But yeah, same thing. I would like to think that I wouldn't, because my kids should be accountable for their actions. But at the same time, okay, I can tell you for sure that if I did end up using something like this, some sort of presidential pardon power because I had it, I can absolutely tell you I would not do 11 years or anything very specific. I would, if I was actually targeting a specific time frame, like, the last like 3.5 years, my kid's been off the rails, I would do a 5-year pardon or a 10-year pardon. Or I would just do a whole life blanket pardon, as long as I'm allowed to in any version of any legality, like 50 years, whatever. Like, I'd do that. I wouldn't do it oddly specific, like lining up exactly with a certain time frame.
It looks shady as hell, doesn't it? Doesn't that just scream suspect?
It almost feels like a double fake. Like, hey, we're gonna pardon Hunter and make it really obvious that you have to look exactly at this time frame. Maybe they're actually trying to use it to get somebody else who like pissed them off, and like they know that you can't get Hunter, but now you can get this person. And this is going to force people to be like, well, now we have to look into it. It just seems so odd. Like, why would you pick that? Pick 15 years, pick 20 years, pick his entire adult life. Go back to when he was 18 and just say that many years. Like, why?
Yeah, there's got to be a reason to be that specific. And Will says it best in the comments.
Right. What else did he do? Yeah.
We know there was else there.
What else isn't on the laptop?
Yeah. Yep. And we'll never know.
See, but this is my thing. Is I would like to think I would never use this pardon for my kids, just because they're my kids. I'll allow for parents with more connections, more wealth, more access to things. Like, if someone's dad is an attorney, they're going to at least understand the ins and outs of things better. They're going to have certain relationships that, in my mind, they should use it to ensure that you're getting more of a minimum, maybe, sentencing instead of the maximum sentencing kind of deal. But my take on the presidential pardon specifically is it's exactly that. It's a presidential pardon. It is not a fatherly pardon. President is not, well, forgive me for saying something entirely unrealistic here. President is not a job. It's not meant to be a primary source of income, really. It's meant to be a responsibility, a role, if you're really taking the role seriously. So a presidential pardon is meant to be a how do I say this? It's meant to be a fix potentially for system issues, or at least to be a shortcut for things that maybe were too convoluted, and someone has the power to make things right, or at least clean things up, make it more clean. So a presidential pardon should be something that's meant to benefit the citizens of the country in some way or another. And just using it for your kids' own petty crimes, no matter what, whether, you can argue all day whether or not Hunter should receive this pardon, but it's definitely not with the American people in mind, with an oddly specific time frame and with his own son. It's just not. This is like, okay, Edward Snowden is a good example. If someone pardoned him, you can go blue in the face all day about why it shouldn't have happened, or why he's a traitor, or why you don't think he's a traitor, and why it should have happened. But that's at least around something that's based on the country, based on treason, like some sort of whistleblower kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is not a pardon for Hunter's role with any ambassador negotiations or anything like that. This is just a blanket, like, my son's okay for the next 11 years. That's the difference. This is not something that's country specific, duty specific. And that's why I don't like this. That's what I don't think I think it's meant to be used for something for the country or the citizens of the country. And we're not there.
See, I look at it, and that's an interesting way you phrase that. I've always looked at it in more of a microcosmic kind of way. I've looked at the presidential pardon as the president addressing something that was adjudicated at one point by a court. But if it were done today, if it were to go to court today, there'd be a dramatically different result. You see someone going to court and being found guilty of something and getting a ridiculous sentence, 45 years because they jaywalked with shoelaces untied wearing a Mets jersey. And today, you go ahead and you reduce that to 43 years because that's way more fair. But, pardoning someone who's on death row, who the evidence, if we had today's technology, it appears they would have been found not guilty. Or if the court was held to the stringent rules of today, they would have been found not guilty. That's always what I looked at the presidential pardon for. It's almost like correcting an injustice, time traveling and saying, if this had happened today, this punishment would not fit that crime, or this wouldn't have happened, and I'm going to go ahead and try to mitigate that. That's how I've always looked at a pardon.
And that's a good use for it too. And it's a nice, quick, clean, like, public consensus shows this really shouldn't have happened, at least not by today's standards. So yeah, that's a good use for it too. But see, that's with the citizens, with the current view of justice in mind. That's not a fatherly thing, really, because this is, for anybody.
Well, that makes sense. How do you feel about pardoning turkeys?
Only if they put the china back together. No, this is I'm not on its face against a father doing what he can to protect his son, but sometimes protecting your son is making them face the consequences. And Hunter is not 16. He's not 25. He's not even like a 30-something who still hasn't figured his shit out, or whatever you want to make an excuse. This is a fucking 50. What is he, 56 or 57 years old?
I mean, Joe is 120, so Hunter's probably 70. Yeah. He's probably in his late 40s, early 50s.
I think I read somewhere. I think Hunter's he's in his 50s.
I mean, that would make sense.
This is not a brain that's still developing or anything. This is not someone who's going to change some behaviors probably at this point.
All right. So in that vein, at what point do you stop shielding your kids from consequences? Or at what point do you stop trying to teach them through consequences and kind of leave them on their own? Where's that milestone? At what point do you be like, all right, cool, I'm done now. Now you should know. Now you deal with all your consequences. Now there's no more help from dad. At what point do you get there? Is that after college? Is that after they have a kid? Is it? And I don't know. My kids are young and yours are young, but I'm wondering if you have an idea as to where we draw that line.
I mean, I have a personal opinion. You can pick some. You can pick legal adulthood, 18 years old. You can pick generally considered end of brain development for males, which is somewhere around 27 or 28, I think, is what they're kind of saying now. It's like a range of 25 to 29 is when the male brain actually fully develops. I'm
pretty sure mine stopped developing around 12 or 13.
Pretty obviously, yeah. And is that in dog years or?
No. I wish. I'd be much wiser.
Right. Thank Will. Never. Just the Sisyphusian brain. But I think it's some combination of those plus having your own kids. Like if you have a 20-year-old kid who has his own kid, and now you're a grandparent, your child still is lots of stuff not happening that they need to figure out. So that's not going to be completely blanketed. But I do think there is something to be said about the type of assistance. So you can talk about financial assistance or like, help with raising the kids / grandkids, or sort of like a pseudo consulting thing where you try to like say, hey, you might try this with what you're doing with like, your new job or whatever like that. But trying to help your kid out of like jail time feels like, no, once your kid's sort of an established, at least by societal considerations, an adult, now you're just kind of going against the grain of society. And not that that's always a bad thing, but there is sort of everyone likes to talk about social contract. There is sort of this like understanding of, there are certain expectations of society. And if you're going against the grain of society, like keeping your literal criminal kid out of trouble, that could cause trouble for other people. And now you're hurting other people, not just helping your kid.
That's where I think I draw the line as far as the behavior. Like if I were to find out my kid was a serial killer, I'm not protecting my kid. Something like that happens. I dread the day my wife learns all my deep, dark secrets, right? She may not protect me anymore.
Jeffrey, what was in those burgers we ate the other day? Ooh, you don't want to know. That wasn't
for me. I don't even know if it's an age thing. I kind of think it's the what was the behavior kind of thing. That's where I draw the line. And I think you just said it best. If my kid is doing something that's hurting other people, then screw it. You need to deal with the consequences. Like that's where I draw the line, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a really fiery discussion with some colleagues today. We have someone on the team who I give him a lot of crap. His parents helped pay for college, and by helped pay for his college, I think they paid for all of his college. They've got some money and they help take care of him, and he's got pretty comfortable. He's a young kid. He's a good kid. He's working hard for us. But he and I very clearly had different upbringings, and we've very clearly got some different positions on things. And we're finally comfortable enough we can joke about it a little bit. And today there were four of us. And someone said something about, your kid, you got to cover your kid's health insurance until they're 26, and you got to do this, you got to do that. You got to pay for your kid's college. And I finally was like, no, you don't have to do any of that. Like you may choose to do that. Maybe your parents are doing that for you, and that's great. You don't have to do that. And a girl on my cube, she's listened to a couple of episodes. I should say a woman, sorry. It's just because she's younger than me, I called her a girl. That's not right. She's listened to a couple of our episodes. She and I have had some good discussions. The What is a Woman episode, she had a different viewpoint, and we actually had a good talk about that. And she's the one that recommended Heretic for me to read. She looked at me and said, excuse you, you don't think it's a parent's responsibility to pay for your kid's college? It's like, no, absolutely not. And we had a nice lively discussion about this. And I was the only one in the room who felt, no, it's not your responsibility. If you can do it and you choose to, great. But you're not obligated to pay for your kid's college. Not every kid needs to go to college. And if they do, they can pay their own way. My parents didn't help pay for my college. Uncle Sam did, thank goodness. But my parents didn't pay for my college. They couldn't have. And Bridget's parents didn't pay for her college. They couldn't have. She paid for that on her own. School loans on her own. We're still paying those off. There's nothing wrong with telling your kid to have some responsibility and go earn this thing on their own. And you help them where you can, but you're not obligated. And you're not obligated to carry them on your insurance until they're 26. And you're not obligated to buy them a car. And you're not obligated to pay their rent. There are some really bizarre expectations of parents. And it kind of dovetails into this. Like, where do you draw the line where you're supposed to be taking care of your kid? You're obligated to do things for your kid versus you say, no, now it's time for you to put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants and go do the thing. Where do you do that? And I'm sure it's different for every person, but where do you stand on the whole paying for your kid's college? I mean, I got real crap for that today. I was the bastard in the office because I didn't believe I should pay for my kid's college.
This is why we need to have our little dad community, because this shows all the different little walks of life and viewpoints. I align very closely to your sample. I basically
this isn't going to be a fun conversation.
What do you mean?
There's disagreement.
No, actually, I agree with you very weirdly, almost right to a T.
Right.
Even
That's
though
what I'm
I'm
saying. It
your
won't be fun. You agree too much with me on this one. So it's not gonna
oh,
be
okay.
fun
Well, I
topic.
can disagree. You know, I'm
No,
good.
it's fine.
I'm good at
It's
that.
nice to have someone who agrees with me. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy this.
No, I am. I
You're my
was
Whoopi right now.
I was that kid. I had the choice of where I could go. Like if I got in, I could go. My parents kind of did the whole "we'll help you out, we'll make it work." There was sort of this understanding of if I can do little things to help them out with that, great. So like I went to Notre Dame. That was not cheap. I was not. I had a little like mailroom campus job, which brought in a couple grand every whatever it was, quarter or semester, like something like that, like every couple of months. So that went against the tuition, so that helped a little bit. But I mean, it was it was like the thing that covered room and board maybe, so it was still pretty serious cost. But especially now with what I've been seeing from a lot of schools, I mean, not all schools are like this, but I'm in the camp with my own kids of like, you should go to college for specific things. If you want to be a doctor, yeah, you got to go to college. You want to be an engineer, yeah, you got to go to college. You want to be a lawyer, college is probably good. You want to study business? No, you don't have to go to college. You want to study, literature? You got to really hone in on the right school for literature. Don't just pick whatever name. You want to pick something that will actually give you a good education. I am pseudo lucky / maybe biased in this because while I went to a school that was expensive and had a lot of parental help from it, I was interested in engineering first and foremost, but then ended up in philosophy. And at the time, Notre Dame was like a top 10 school rated in philosophy in the country. So I wasn't going for like nothing. I was getting an actual specific education in it. And that's kind of my take is if you want to really go for something and you can get into a spot that's, actually accredited and respected for it, that's probably worth the investment, if only for the education side of it. But if you're going just to get a degree, no, definitely not worth it right now. You're much better off doing a vocational school, literally traveling the world and getting some experience that I never got back when I was that age. I would have benefited so much from just living 1 year in another country. I would have gotten exposure and experiences and everything else that it took me a long time to get elsewise. That being said, yes, it's okay to help with finances if you can, but also your job is to take care of your kids, which requires taking care of you. So if you can't afford to help, then you just can't help. And that's up to your kid then to make the decision, especially at that age. They got to start thinking long-term, thinking ahead. This is part of growing up, is them making these decisions too. I mean, I had it lucky with my options, but it was definitely not a one-way conversation either. I wasn't just saying, yeah, mom and dad, I'll do whatever. There was kind of this like, can we do this? Or do I need to do something different? Or, if I was even talking about living off campus with different costs, I would ask that, how important was that? I mean, I was still being a sounding board to and from my parents. So, but I'm exactly in your camp, which is no, you don't have to help your kid, and don't break yourself helping your kids too. I mean, you need to stick around, and especially for your kids, they can find their ways.
You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? It's one of those
Right.
situations. Yeah.
Right.
I see Will's kind of on our page too. And actually, I didn't mention this. I don't think I told you I got to see Will last week. He was up in Rhode Island teaching a course, teaching a taser instruction course to some people. And I drove about an hour up. Got to hang out and have a little snack and have a little beer and then put him on an airplane. But I got to see him, and I forgot. He told me he just went through this with one of his kids. As he says, he told his kids if they make the grades, he'll help with college. And if they don't, then good luck. And I forgot he had just told me about this, where this happened with one of his kids, where the grades just weren't quite there and college wasn't, right now the best thing. And so, yeah, this is kind of where it went. Whereas Blake, his boy, I shouldn't be saying his name, so we can edit that out on the audio. But he's going to go straight to Major League Baseball, so it's not really a concern there. But it was good to see him and catch up, and I'm glad to hear that there are a couple of dads who share my point of view here, because I got lambasted for this a little bit today, and honestly, not one of them has a kid, so it was probably really easy for each of them to have an opinion on this. None of them have kids, and none of them were over the age of probably 24, 25. So I think it's just a generational difference. Yeah, I think
you should just tell them. You should just say it's okay. Your brains aren't fully developed yet.
Yeah, that'll go over well. One of them was talking about how he cleaned his apartment this weekend. He said it was the first time since he moved in that he really cleaned his apartment. He's like, yeah, I dusted and I vacuumed and I wiped everything down and I washed all my dishes and I did my laundry. And I don't want to put her name out, but the same woman I was referencing earlier, I've got a good rapport with her and we can joke. I can joke pretty comfortably with her and not worry about offending her. She's got thick skin and she gets that I'm joking. She's good people. So I happened to walk out while they were talking about this, and I said, "Yeah, you're doing it wrong. That's not how you clean. That's if you're cleaning that hard in your apartment, you're doing something wrong. Just get married." And the look that she gave me was absolute fire. It was priceless. She goes, "Tom, you can't say that." What?
Yes, you did. You should work smarter, not harder.
So it was kind of fun, but no one who has a kid actually stepped up and kind of backed me up on this one. Everyone left me to argue with the children, and the children all feel entitled to, their parents should be paying for this stuff. And it's probably just a generational difference. Like, honestly, I'm sure there's something attributable to a different generation that I'm overlooking, but there was no way my parents could have paid for my college. There was just no way. And
it's also what you have too. Like what's the Thomas Sowell quote? It says, after receiving preferential treatment, equal treatment feels like, what's the word? I can't think of the word right now.
I don't know. I don't know this quote.
Discrimination.
I feel like I'm at least familiar with most of the quotes you throw at me. Yeah. I don't know this one.
It was on this Twitter thing. It was the Thomas Sowell account tweeted out where it said, after preferential treatment, equal treatment feels like discrimination to most people. And like, that's a pretty accurate quote. Yeah. So
that
I think that's part of what's going on here too. Yeah. It's funny that Will mentioned the grades too, because I had that pseudo understanding with my parents. They were like, well, if you're like, in so many, I'll abbreviate it. Like, if you're dicking around, we're not going to pay for this. It's kind of an investment in you. Like, you're the investment. Yeah. So, but also at least back then, it kind of felt like if you didn't get the grades, you weren't going to certain places anyway. So,
And back then it was different too, because a college degree got you a job afterwards. Like, I remember growing up being told, if you get a bachelor's, it'll get you a job somewhere. It didn't matter what it was in, just get a degree. Now it doesn't. And even a master's now doesn't necessarily get you a job.
Value's gone.
Yeah. And my wife and I have talked about it quite a bit. A couple of friends of mine who have kids have talked about it quite a bit. College is not for every kid. And a lot of cases, trade school is much better. You look at General Dynamics Electric Boat, and we've mentioned them just only once or twice, probably by name the whole time here. But they're active in high schools. They're active in bringing in kids into the trades, whether it's welding or pipe fitting or electrician or carpentry. And big contractor companies like that, especially DoD contractors, they will not only get you that job fresh out of high school, they'll pay for your training. They will get you certified. They'll pay you while you do it, pay you a good wage for coming right out of high school. And then they'll hire you
for it too.
Right. And then they hire you at an above average wage. Yep. So why go to college and pick up all that debt and make an extra mortgage payment your entire life if it's not, kind of like you said, focused toward a singular goal?
Yeah.
Why get a basic degree if it's not honed in and it's not going to get you a job? Just go to trade school, and you can always go to college later. But the young kid that I'm talking about, the guy 22 years old that I'm joking about at work, he's starting off at almost $80,000. That's like a basic entry level pay for what he's doing. It's like $80,000. That's pretty damn good, for a 22-year-old fresh out of college.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, but he had to go to college for 4 years and pick up some debt for that. If he'd have gone to trade school, the same contractor company, and gone to trade school right out, he'd be making that same amount of money, but without the debt and with 4 years experience, and he'd have gotten paid that whole time. He'd probably own a house by now. So college can be good if it's specific, if you're getting an engineering degree or a doctorate degree or something that gets you a job, but trade school is going to be for a lot of kids, and not all kids need to go to college. And I suggested the military at one point, and the looks I got when I suggested that, oh gosh, Doug, oh man, you would have thought I said beat your kids till they can't talk anymore and then beat them some more. Like, I got death looks for suggesting the military.
No, the military does that for you.
Yeah, that's true. The military will beat your kids for you. You're right. But after it breaks them, it'll mostly put them back together. Mostly. Like
Humpty Dumpty. No, well, and this is where I'm partially biased too. Because
feel. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change that. I'm going to change myself to Humpty Dumpty, Dad.
So what am I? Am I the king's horses? Like, what am I?
Yeah, I guess.
So, well, this is where I am partially biased, I think, too, because I also have this view of, I mean, college with the landscape as it is right now, again, things like doctor, attorney, engineer, like you kind of need a college, at least because you need additional sort of instruction behind that. I mean, if there were more offshoot schools, like I feel like if you could find schools that specialize, like a law school, they should invent a law school or a medical school. But I don't know that you need the full 4 years of college before some of that now. It's with the way some of these places are running, but you do need college for some of those things. I think the other function of college was sort of like the way back then original intent, where you were only taking certain people who were sort of the more, who had more of the intangible, sort of the Platonic or the Plato's, the Aristotle's types of thinkers that try to structure society and kind of know things. My dad used to say there are certain things that are worth knowing just for the sake of knowing it. And it's those kinds of people that you should train up because their value to society is their brain. You don't really want them swinging a hammer on stuff. You don't want them doing any weldings. It's not going to work.
You don't want them in a foxhole. You don't want them on the streets enforcing law,
right,
running into burning buildings. Yeah.
Not only are they more useful in more of a intangible, brainy kind of way, but they're more destructive in some of the other spots, I think. Yeah. And you need those people maybe getting more reading, getting more well-rounded education, getting some of that more in-depth philosophical stuff, because those ideally should be your managers, your politicians, your local leaders, your guys who are actually taking a vision and saying, okay, let's get this done, let's get the people to get this done. But that kind of comes with the understanding that you are also very much serving your society and serving other people in this role. You're getting this extra education to lead, but you have to lead for the sake of other people. And that was the original intent, I think, behind some of those old founded colleges, was getting people sort of a breadth of history that they could make smarter decisions for everybody else. But that's obviously not what it's used for now. I think that's a good function of college. There was I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the school.
Good talk.
Yes, right. It was some small school, like 600 and some students, I think, in the undergrad, somewhere up in North U.S. I want to say it was like Colgate or something like that. It wasn't that, though. I don't think.
We can go with that. We'll just call it the Xavier School for the sake of discussion.
Right. Well, that's in Cincinnati, Ohio, Xavier University, anyway.
Oh, I was thinking of Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
That's in upstate New York, I
believe.
Well,
we don't actually know where that is. It's cloaked. Thank you.
Pretty sure it was upstate New York. I think they're pretty upfront about the location.
Right. But they had their main program that all their undergrads had to go through for at least the first 2 or 3 years or something. It was called the Great Books Program. And people railed against it because it wasn't the, quote, new, updated, more recent knowledge. But the program required reading Euclid, reading Plato, reading Aristotle, reading all the OGs for their various fields. And if you wanted to go further into some of the more recent, add-ons to those, great. But the idea was our students get the base level of the great thinkers of modern fields. And I was really attracted to that because that sounded kind of cool, to get an actual foundational understanding of kind of the thoughts of society.
Yeah.
And that feels like a good use of college to me.
And now college is a business model. It's no
Correct.
longer about that. Now it's just a way for an organization to make money. It's just capitalistic. That's all it is. They're just churning it through as many students as they can and making as much money as they can and securing all the loans that they can and getting all the grants that they can. It's just a business model now in most cases.
Yeah, I didn't want to get political again, but something one of my parents said one time was, when the government pays for it, when the government subsidizes it, you get more of it. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. So that's when the government started doing student loans. Guess what happened? There were a whole lot more college goers and college tuition went up. You can see the correlation, at least for that. And I think that's part of the issue, is there are more people willing to pay for it, or at least front you the money. And I think that's created a worse problem for people in society, and honestly, a worse product. because now it's more about the money instead of the actual product. There's less competition.
You talked about, the school that essentially taught all the classics, the Hellenistic, the Aristotelian, the Platonic stuff. Did you hear the story about all books prior to 2008 being pulled out of schools and being banned? Did you read that story anywhere?
No. Looks like it was St. John's College, by the way.
So it wasn't Xavier School for the Gifted?
No, it was St. John's College for the minorly gifted.
Okay.
Kidding. No, what's this thing what's this other thing you're referencing?
I'm trying to find it, and I'll share the window. I think it was a Canadian school that, or maybe it's Canada in general. I think it was a college in Canada. They're banning every book. A university.
Soon to be the U.S. 51st state.
Yes.
Did you hear what Trump said? Come on, that was funny. Well, Trudeau, if you can't deal with the tariffs, then we could just annex you, and you could be the governor.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. So it is Canada.
Such a jerk. I love it.
Ontario's Peel District School Board last month rolled out a process causing schools in the area to remove books published before 2008. This is now being looked at nationally to ensure inclusion and diversity of thought in every book that's being presented, and every book in the school's agenda is being audited and reviewed to ensure that it has diversity, equity, and inclusion being presented to its students. So they're literally banning any book written before 2008, and then they're auditing every single book after 2008 in the school system to make sure that they're all inclusive of multicultural. It's a DEI initiative for books, and they just did a flat ban. If it's before 2008, sorry, it's not an equity-based book, so we're not going to have it. They decided 2008 is the Mason-Dixon line of hateful literature.
I assume this would not include the 151st publishing of Aristotelian ethics.
Yeah, it sounds like that's out.
It's probably based on writing date, not publishing date. That's a bad idea.
Books removed from the criteria included The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Hear Me Cry. Yeah. Yep, everything before 2008 gone.
I mean,
when you talk to librarians in this library, our books are being selected and weeded by the date, no other criteria. What a stupid statement that is, huh?
That's I mean, isn't that ironic that you want diversity, equity, and inclusion, and your response to that is to not include most of human history's writing?
Yeah. Yep.
Everything that you only need the last 16 years. This is like the opposite of everything I learned in kindergarten.
Right. Yeah. Well, I remember like Ulysses has a history of like every 20 years it would pop up and they'd be like, this is offensive. We can't have this public. And it would get banned for a couple of years and there'd be lawsuits and then it would get unbanned and the censorship would go away. Like there are historical books that are challenging and that are controversial. But you know what? If you're going to have growth and you're going to have progress and you're ever going to develop, you need to be challenged. You need to have controversy and you have to have the freedom to think controversial thoughts and challenge the status quo and see if anything comes out of it. If you can't do that, nothing ever grows, period.
Here's a perfect example. Like a book that I personally thought was a little bit misguided in some of its messaging, but that was a good book, Native Son.
Didn't read it.
I believe I will get some of the plot details wrong, but it basically argues like, against some of the racist stuff at the time that was happening. Like it's from the viewpoint of sufferers of racism. And
what's the time period it's in?
I think it's from like the 50s or 70s or something like that. Honestly, let me look this up. But I remember this being one of those books that I personally didn't really like some of the stuff they went after, but here you go, 1940.
Okay, yeah. So this is like the peak of racism and the social movement. Okay.
Yeah, here. Native Son, 1940, is a novel written by the American author Richard Wright. It tells the story of 20-year-old Bigger Thomas, a black youth living in utter poverty in a poor area in Chicago's South Side in the 1930s. Thomas accidentally kills a white woman at a time when racism is at its peak, and he pays the price for it. That's the very first paragraph in Wikipedia. And again, some of the stuff in the book, like the motivations, I didn't think were completely great. But then again, it was written in 1940. It's based in the 1930s. The fact that I even had to this was when I had an American novel course in college, which was not normally my cup of tea, but we had a fantastic teacher, by the way. It was great. The fact that I had to even try to rail against this book really helped me a lot. It really forced me to look at myself and think, what do I really believe? Like, is it really so bad that someone's expressing an opinion that I don't like? Because maybe they have a point. And stuff like this, books like this, put it in a way, that's why it's art. Yeah. It puts it in a way that you have to confront, you have to grapple with. If it's just a boring mumbo jumbo, like technical book, you don't have to grapple with it. Like that eliminates stuff like this. And this is one of those things that I think about, like a book that made me uncomfortable that I still don't agree with, but that I think is valuable. It's this kind of stuff.
And so I didn't get a lot of that when I was in high school. When I was at UConn, so I was an English degree and I got a psychology degree as well at UConn. So I did double bachelors. I got 2 different bachelors. And that was my first time I really dipped my toes into some of the waters for, different cultural perspectives, other than the stuff I read growing up, mythology and histories. But I remember taking a British literature course that was very anti-colonialist, and it was mostly reading literature from the perspective of places that England and Britain and the East India Trading Company was colonizing. And, it was a lot of African literature where you were reading about people who were writing about what it was like to have England roll in and change things and dominate their culture and literally start this process of taking people, the beginnings of the slave trade, if you will. And the poetry and the folklore and the stories that we read, there was a lot there that I remember reading going, oh, wow, I'm so glad I'm reading this from your point of view instead of the traditional English writers who were writing in that time and just getting it in theirs. Like Heart of Darkness is very different when you're reading about that story from someone in the Congo who lives there. It's a very different story. So I remember thinking
that is in and of itself a different story.
Yeah. So I remember being grateful for like that different perspective in the culture. I think with literature, the perspective of the cultures involved is extra important. It's just a story if you don't have real perspective. And that was why when critical race theory came up and became such a hot topic and everybody was mad about that being taught in schools, I was all for it because that's basically what I got. What critical race theory is supposed to be is what I got in college. And that was where it originated, was in college, usually in law courses and law schools, but also in literature. And it's looking at literature from not just the perspective of people who were in power at the time, but also the other people who were involved in their societies. And it made a ton of sense to me. And I couldn't understand why people were railing against this the way that they were. And I think the term got sort of pirated and got changed to mean something else. And it's much broader now. And it's a shame. But it's very important to, I think, read culture. It's
not what it is anymore. It's not a theory anymore. That's why it's being railed against. I mean, when I first encountered it, it was not in a college setting, and in my mind, I understood it for what it was. And then when I found out what it originally was, and I read it, I went, "Oh, that seems fine." Especially if it's specifically within a classroom setting. Of course, it seems fine. What's the big, If it was only this, then it would be stupid to be against this. Yeah. I mean, history is written by the victors, and guess what? At some point in history, almost everybody becomes a loser. So it is important to try to focus on the non-victors in various time frames too. And the irony of going before 2008, just saying, nope, that's that's erasing all the losers.
This is where we're drawing the line. Everybody before 2008 is a winner, and we don't want the winner stuff.
What happened in 2008? Oh, that was the beginning of Obama.
It was.
He must be behind this. That son of a bitch. Going after Canada now.
Oh, Canada, I heart you. Thank you for your contributions. We appreciate you.
When was the last time Trudeau had that blackface? Was that 2007? That could be it too.
Ooh, that could be it too. Yeah, that could be it. I really don't know, but that could be it.
No, I think it was earlier than that. That was his college days. I think he's a little bit older than that. It's okay. I'm just going to spew out really hateful, unmitigated, unverified things and just roll with it.
You know, why not? We finally got enough followers that we can live stream on the channel. Let's just go ahead and cancel that, like day one. Let's just do that.
Just do it. I have an idea. This should be like episode 400. I've sort of mentioned this before, but we should call it the cancellation episode. And we should just take every single hot button issue and just like single sentence, like how you feel about it and why. And it could be like critical race theory, abortion, capital punishment, like just the whole thing, just like 20, like how do you feel and why? Just take turns and be like, all right, see you later. We're done.
So we've got some topic. We're gonna defer to our Patreon suggestions for tomorrow's recording, which won't be a live stream. It'll be a normal episode, and it'll air next Wednesday. So Wednesday the 11th of December, and we're gonna lean on what the patrons suggested in Patreon. Charles gave us a good idea, and I think we're gonna run with that one.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm kind of excited about that. But one thing I want to do for an episode, I want to have a literal update episode, where we go back and we look at our topics from our episode organization chart, and we look at what we talked about, and we just do a quick internet scan on each of those subjects and see what's changed, see what's new, and just have an episode that's all updates. And maybe we do that once a year. It's the end of year review, with dad jokes that are
the annual review.
Yep, it'll be an extra dad jokey episode because we'll have episodes for each topic. We'll have like 50 dad jokes in an episode, and a little update for everything. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Prepared for this. So, if you were President Tom, would you pardon your son if he was... See, we can't say this without getting political, because it's really like if your son was helping siphon money between the U.S. Congress people and Ukraine and you were getting a cut of it, would you pardon your son? Because that's the prevailing opposition theory, or would you just pardon your son in general? Would you just pardon your son in general if you could?
I think I would, and I would know that it's wrong, and I would know that I shouldn't. But I mean, unless he was committing murder and rape, I would do it anyway. I just.
Oh, okay. So it really is. Oh well. Oh, it's not that bad. It's fine. It's just extortion.
I would contextualize it, and I would rationalize it with myself. That's what I would do.
Racketeering. Everyone.
I would absolutely pardon my kid for racketeering. I'm sure that I would.
Let he who is not racketeered cast the first stone.
Listen, I'm not trying to take throwing stones for granted, but I would absolutely. I would know it was wrong, but I think there's a part of me that would still want to do it. I think there's a part of you as a dad that is just hardwired to want to protect your kids, even if they're wrong, even if they're stupid. I think in your heart, your kids are always going to be little kids. They're never going to be grown-up adult kids. They're always going to be that little kid. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I don't know.
Speaking of stones, someone's getting coal for Christmas.
I heard instead of giving coal this year, they're actually giving U.S. dollars. They're cheaper. A lump of coal.
Yeah, right. They are.
You get a $1 bill.
They have a burn time that's way lower than coal. They won't heat the house. Well, see, and this probably goes back to kind of what I think I mentioned it. God, when did I mention this? I had a discussion a while ago with somebody about this will make sense when if the president of the United States, whoever it is, doesn't matter who it is like blatantly doing illegal things, like treasonous, like selling out the country strictly for their own benefit, which is kind of what the opposition is saying now, but like it was like super bad, like worst person on earth, like literal Hitler. Yeah. And you had a chance to assassinate the president and get away with it. Would you? Was like the basis of the discussion. And my buddy, who was military, by the way, said, no, I would not do that because of my respect for the office.
We had this talk on an episode of the show, actually.
That's what I mean. It was like a way long time ago. And I said, I absolutely would because of my respect for the office. Yeah. That you are a man abusing an office, whereas the other side was you are that office, the man in that office, and therefore I can't hurt that office. And I think that's where this comes in for me too. Like, I would not I would like to think I'll qualify this by saying I can't say being in that position that I wouldn't change, because it's always different when it's real. I mean, like Dave Chappelle would, keeping it real goes wrong. But I would like to think I would not do that, because I'm acting as the president of the United States. I have an obligation to our system, to our laws, to society as a whole, to be an example, blah, 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 blah. You being my son or my kid, whoever it is, if anything, that puts a greater onus on you to behave yourself, to act accordingly, to set another example. Me pardoning you is not only a bad example, but again, hurts the fabric of society, destroys trust, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. My respect for the office says I should not use the office to abuse that, because it's a privilege and a duty, not a ability or business connection or whatever like that. It's not an access, it's a duty. And that's why I would like to think I would never do that, because that's an abuse, plain and simple. I think that's the easiest way to say it. It's just an abuse of my position.
Yeah, I respect that. And again, I agree with that. Rationally, I agree with that. But if it was
you're just saying
my kid in the hot seat,
I would do it anyway.
I feel like I probably would, even though I understand. Like, I feel like I would just want to protect my kid. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I would.
Why is your kid in the hot seat, though? That's the thing. Like, my question is, like, why the fuck are you even here?
It depends on which kid it is, honestly. Like, it completely depends on which kid it is. If it was my firstborn, she got framed. She's not intentionally going to do anything wrong enough to go to jail. If it was my
we never talked about that
secondborn,
with the college thing too. I was like, some of this depends on the kid too. Like, my relationship with my parents about the college was like, well, can this happen? Like, I'm not here to like just take. Yeah. But yeah, right, exactly.
My second kid, he's got potential to do something wrong and go. He wouldn't do it with malice in his heart, but something like accidental manslaughter, something that could happen there. He would do something accidental, driving his car too fast because he wants to do 85 and he hits somebody. Like, my poor son, he doesn't have inhibitions. He's the one who gets a little reckless in what he does, and he never do anything ill-intentioned, but accidents happen, and so that'd be tougher. My third one, that's sneaky, because my third one is like the little bundle of hope and love and joy and always happy all the time, and always sweet.
Throwing the racketeering
I don't trust that crap at all. So she's gonna grow up to be like an organized crime, kingpin or something awful, and no one's ever gonna know.
We don't
she'll
know
be Martha Stewart
well enough yet for that, but yeah. I don't know. I could see our third being mostly a good-hearted kid, but like kind of like a long fuse. Like, if our third, my son, does something bad, it'll be this like, yeah, you definitely meant to do it. Maybe you went a hair overboard, but it's not like the other person didn't completely undeserve it. Like, they probably they poked the bear.
Yep.
Kind of thing would be my third. Yeah, my first is she's much more of a straight shooter, I think. The second one will troll the crap out of you. That's the problem, is my second one, at least right now, probably wouldn't need a pardon for anything, because she'd have that all planned out. She wouldn't be linked back to it at all.
She's the one that set up my firstborn, and just that she'd go to jail with her and get some jail time with her bestie.
She would. My secondborn would come to President Daddy and be like, "Hey, by the way, that was actually my fault." And I'm like, "Well, fuck! Now I have to pardon my oldest and not tell anybody about what you did. But if it comes out, I'm not pardoning you." Like, okay, it's fine. I got it covered.
Yep.
Man.
All right, dad jokes.
I don't know. Sure.
No dad jokes? I got dad jokes. So I've got a Christmas theme. I get pinged at work quite a bit, and people just ask me for jokes. People think I've got like this hard drive in my brain that's just like loaded with jokes, and they're not entirely wrong. But I've been getting themed requests lately. Like yesterday, I was asked specifically for penis jokes, and today I was asked for Christmas jokes. And it's like people are just trying to see where I run out. I think they're trying to see how many different categories I can tap into before I run out, is what I think is happening. I'm being tested.
See, so that's interesting. Jokes. Well, I was going to say, because you're in an environment where you're around more people and access to these things and they come up. Like, I've been out of the like strict corporate, lots of people around thing for years. And I think all my jokes are from then. I haven't had to refresh them too often. Although I do have a good one. It's raunchy from recently, but I love it.
I don't know how raunchy we can get with the live stream. I don't know.
No, I'm gonna use it. It's not bad. It's not gonna get me banned like that other thing.
Okay, that's good.
I won't say it again because I don't want it to happen again. But let's just say I typed something in one of Tom's little poker live streams. It said it banned me for an hour. I couldn't.
I forgot about that.
It was like, you can't post for an hour. I was like, what?
Kind of funny that in the poker live stream of all things, like, you know, that's kind of the guy's environment, right?
The AI was pretty good on that one, though. The algorithm was pretty good on it.
Yep, it caught you.
All right, well, I have mine. It's yeah, I don't think it'll get me banned, but we can just log off right afterwards. It's fine.
Oh, I've got some real dirty ones for after we log off. Maybe I'll put those on Patreon. We can do a separate video clip on Patreon with just the dirty ones.
Good. I like that. Okay. All right, well,
what's the difference between Donald Trump and Santa Claus?
One comes on Christmas and one comes on hookers.
No. Santa stopped.
That's a good answer, though.
I've got a better joke similar to that.
Santa only has three
Santa
hoes.
stopped after 3 hoes.
Yeah, okay, that's good too. It's similar line of thinking.
Similar. The one that you're looking at is why do prostitutes like Christmas?
Because of all the hoes.
Because Santa finally comes.
Oh, no,
and we've just been canceled.
Oh, that's what did it?
Yeah, it just happened.
We
don't know it yet, but we've just been canceled.
We've done way worse things.
That's true.
If storks bring babies, help babies happen, what prevents babies?
Storks bring babies. What prevents them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, abstinence. I'm thinking condoms. I'm thinking Texas personalities. Yeah, I don't know.
You gotta think more like storks. Storks.
No, storks. I'm just gonna tap out. I don't like the dead space, and I'm not there.
Okay. Swallows.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you know why Santa is so easy to track on Christmas Eve? Because he accepts all the cookies.
Oh man. Wow, that's good.
Isn't that a good one?
Oh.
Yeah.
At first I was like, that's kind of stupid. That's kind of silly. And then it hit me.
It's pretty good.
Okay, that's good.
And it's wholesome, you know, that one's wholesome.
Yeah, right.
What do you call someone who doesn't believe in Santa Claus? Agnostic.
Yeah, it would see on a regular recording, I would have gotten there and I would have deleted the 5 minutes of dead air to get there.
You know the difference between Santa Claus and a knight?
Like an
armor
knight.
Sword shield knight, a medieval knight.
The difference between them?
Mm-hmm.
Something about jousting?
No.
Different sleighs, different slaying.
Close. It has to do with it. Yep. One slays a dragon and one drags a sleigh.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, see,
you're right there. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, technically, Tom, the reindeer dragged the sleigh, not Santa.
That's fair. That's fair. Do you know what Santa and Bill Cosby have in common? Well, I'm not telling this one here. This one will be on the Patreon. So if you want to hear the answer to that one, you got to join the Patreon. And then let's see what else can be on the
Patreon. Recognizes game.
Why can't Santa have babies?
Come on, I'm still not over the last one. Hold on.
That one's going to be on Patreon too. Yep. Yep. I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus one year, and that punchline's going to be on Patreon too. Yeah. All right. We got at least 3 of them on Patreon for our patrons. Thank you guys for being patrons. We appreciate the hell out of you. Hopefully you don't mind a little dark humor, a little dirty Santa.
You can't bring up Bill Cosby to me. You know that unsettles me. I'm just like a mess now.
Oh, Doug, don't show me on the doll where Bill Cosby touched you, okay? Just don't.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't need to know that. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. We had a bunch of viewers pop on and off. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. Patrons, we really appreciate you guys, even extra. Yeah, it was nice to catch up and get a live stream out there. Doug will take care of the audio.
Real account.
On our real account, we're there. We're finally there.
This is not Tom's audio masquerading as us. This is us masquerading as us.
Yep. We can start putting this stuff up on the YouTube directly now, which would be good. I think they fixed their direct upload problem, so I think we can start putting that up straight from the channel. Go content, go.
Yes. Bye, Humpty Dumpty.
Thank you, Horse and Kingsman. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Night.